Namaste. First of all, I want to be sensitive to the last 2 hours. I think Deepak, in his impressive presentation, gave you 100 good reasons to partner with IBM. At the same time, I felt a little bit breathless at the end. So if you are okay, I would invite you, if you want, you stand up and stretch for like 30 seconds, and I promise you, you don't have to dance. So if you just want to use a moment to stretch, or if you feel all okay, then this is fine as well. Oh, you are strong people. So I underestimated you. I apologize for that. Yeah, it's really an honor for me to be back. It's actually my 4th CSI. And I'll come back to this in a minute. The first event I had the honor to participate in was 2009. And I want to give you a little bit a larger perspective. You heard a lot about products, you heard a lot about IBM solutions in the last 2 hours. And I promise you, I will not talk about solutions and products. What I'm trying to do is to put those trends, to put those new mega trends we are seeing into a larger context. I want to take a look at it from a client perspective and also from an individual perspective, and try to understand what is going on right now, what is happening in the exciting times we are in right now. Is this another repeat of something which happened in the past, or is this something really fundamentally different? So, as I said, I have been here 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, actually end of 2008, IBM had a vision. IBM saw a landscape which we, at those days, Sam Palmisano, called the smarter planet. And we were convinced, and I told you with a lot of passion, because smarter planet for me is something I'm getting very passionate about, because I think it can make the world a lot better. Not only our businesses, it can affect everybody's life. And that was what we were seeing. We were convinced this would affect our customers, it would in fact affect you as our partners, and it would affect the way we work, it would affect our employees. For those of you who have been there, 2009, I don't want to raise your hands, this was the original slide which we used those days. And I think the headline is pretty to the point. We had a good sense of urgency that something meaningful is happening. That we are at an inflection point of things coming together here. And that those things will change dramatically the world, how the world operates. Now, let's see where we are. We can confidently say now, with thousands of customers following the idea of Smarter Planet and implementing solutions in different industries, and you got a little list here, we can confidently say this vision comes true every day. We see the signs of a smarter planet everywhere. We see that organizations around the world are using and turning too much data into much better decisions. And I want to be clear. What we have seen so far, and the examples you heard from Deepak and others, are still the tip of the iceberg. If you look into our research labs, if you look into what Google thinks about the future, if you look to other companies who are in this industry, we are very, very confident that our capabilities, which we will use in 5 years from now, will be a factor of 100 or a factor of 1,000 stronger, faster, and better than what we do today. This is very hard to imagine, and it's probably, again, a bet I do with you, like the bet 5 years ago when we were talking first about Smarter Planet. But this is the dimension you should expect. The walls between companies and customers are disappearing. We and you help clients to transform their businesses. We take part of their business and run it on their behalf. But not only that, we also see the walls between technologies, industries, and fields of expertise are disappearing. Now, why is this relevant? Take a look at one of the largest mergers which were announced day before yesterday. I'm pretty sure you all read it. Microsoft is going to take over Nokia. I mean, wind back 5 or 6 years. Would you have ever believed this? Nokia being a world-leading company, owning the market for mobile telephones. And it took less than 5 years to get them into a total different situation where they have to accept a takeover from Microsoft. These are the kind of changes which are currently happening. This is truly breathtaking. I'm pretty sure you agree. And while we see the beginning of computers acting and thinking like human beings, we also see that the computers are enabling people in their homes, in farms, in their countries to make much better use of the power of compute which we give to them. So I think we all collectively, with your companies, IBM, we are up for an exciting change of the world. And certainly we all are here for doing business. But the good thing about this is we can make the world much better for everybody to live in. And I think that's the message and the vision I would like to share with you. Now, I mentioned to you, smarter planet is something which we see happening every day. Now, let's take a bit a closer look. We must recognize 5 years after this announcement or this vision, data is really changing the way we work and the way we lead. It is affecting everybody, every industry. And let me pick a couple examples. Not necessarily, by the way, IBM examples. I just want to give you a flavor of how those things are changing. Let's probably start with retailing, something we can all easily relate to. We are customers. We go in shops. We go shopping. I recently read a book with a very interesting example from a retailer in the US. This retailer in the US, a department store manager, got a complaint from his daughter is pregnant. And he talked to his daughter, and she's not. And the store manager apologized and said, well, stop that merchandising and all of that. 4 weeks later, the guy came back, the customer came back and apologized to the store manager and said, I'm very sorry. I must admit, my daughter is pregnant. Now that's a nice anecdote. Is there any truth to it? It is a true story. It is a true story because using predictive data analysis, this company, this grocery chain, a smart guy in the IT department found out that women, not even self-knowing that they are pregnant, start to change their buying behavior. They start to buy things in getting ready for being pregnant. Can you imagine this? This is the quality, this is the dimension we can expect from predictive data analysis going forward. People, systems, companies will know things about us, will be able to predict our social behavior before we even understand that. Now, by the way, this is not surprising. I want to do a little quiz here. You have an idea how much information we get per second while you are sitting there? It's actually exactly 1 billion bytes every second. Now you will say, how do we do this? I mean, impossible. We can't deal with that. Actually, you're right. All we use, all our brain is actively using, is somewhere between 90 and 100 bytes per second. Very small fraction. The rest happens in our subconscious. And this subconscious, by the way, is making more decisions for us than we would ever like to believe. If you believe you are a person of your own will and you decide what to do, don't think so. Your subconscious is driving you. And this is exactly where predictive analysis kicks in. It looks at your behavior, at your patterns in the past, and with an unbelievable high likelihood, it can tell you what you will do tomorrow at 6 p.m. Interesting, frightening, both flavors, right? Let me stay in the retailer business for a moment more longer. Walmart, well-known, largest retailer in the world. Walmart has a project kicked off called Social Genome. They want to do what this other grocery company does in a very niche area by one guy. They want to do it systematically across their 2 billion customers around the world. Or take Procter & Gamble. These guys already have taken it to the next level. Procter & Gamble has something called the decision board, where every Monday morning, the top management of Procter & Gamble sits in a room, looks at their top 50 products, top 50 branches. Now you will say, many companies are doing this. They took it to the next level. They no longer look at the data and try to find out why this guy sold a little more and why this product sold a little less. They already get recommendations. They get the analysis on the table Monday morning, and a day after the last week closed, including recommendations what to do, in which store, in which product line, in which marketing stream. This is what we consider real-time decision-making in a smarter planet context. Let's take another example, policing. There is a term out there now called predictive policing. And some of you might have seen our little ad where this police guy is already standing in front of the liquor store waiting for the bad guy to come in, and then the bad guy says, okay, I understood, I'm leaving. Sounds like a joke. It is reality. Many police departments in the US are now making active use with the same amount of resources, so not more police people, same amount of resources. They are able to reduce the crime in a city by 30% and increase investigation success by 70%. Real data, you can read about it. The police of Memphis, the Los Angeles Police Department, the New York Police Department. All they do is they take information and say which location, which time in the day, which day in the week. And then they focus their resources on the spots where they exactly know from history where are the most dangerous places. Sounds simple? It is very sophisticated, and as you can see, it really works. Or take, probably as the last example, take healthcare. And we have been talking about healthcare and Watson and all the capabilities which we envision there quite often already. Take a look from another angle. Take a look from an insurance company, a health insurance company. There are projects underway where health insurance companies analyzing historic patient data and predicting, based on that data, how likely it is that this person within the next 12 months will need hospital support again. Now, they are not doing it to manage cash flow or things like that. They are doing it to approach this patient and say, guy, if you would take this preparation or if you would take this care, you could prevent this from happening. Coming to a personalized diagnosis in medicine and at the same time saving resources for the health insurance and for the hospital. Those are the kind of changes which we just start to see. And if we believe what happened the last 5, 10, 15 years since internet and all these nice things came about was already breathtaking, I promise you, the stuff which is in front of us is probably 10 times more exciting than what we have seen. Or take a practical example, finally, on the energy side. Energy is one of the critical and scarce resources in the world, which will make the difference whether 7 billion people and in 10 years, 20 years, 8 or 9 billion people will have a decent life. Energy management will make the difference. Now, as you probably tell, my home country is Germany, and these crazy guys in Germany decided they want to shut off all their nuclear power plants. Now, to be honest, I'm all for it. I'm convinced this is the right thing. I'm also convinced the only answer is efficient use of IT technology. This will make the difference. Predictions are that this energy management capabilities in grid and others will bring us about 30% energy savings. This alone will make nuclear power for Germany unnecessary. Example out of that sector, wind energy. A Danish company, Vestas, building and implementing, deploying wind energy piles. They use 160 different parameters to define the best space, the best height, the best location for such a wind energy tool. They generate, for one post, they generate more than 1 petabyte of data using all kinds of information and making efficiency improvements on their energy production of over 50%. Those are the kind of examples which I refer to when I talk about Smarter Planet. Now, I promised you I want to take you a little bit, I want to give you a little bigger perspective. I want to put it in a little bigger context. I mean, we easily talk today about information technology. We even abbreviate it and say IT. And we talk about data. I'm not sure if I would have asked you, would have come to the first revolution of information technology if you would have pointed back to book printing. And I agree, this is the European or German version of the invention. There are many others, I'm pretty sure, given the culture in India or the culture in China. Others would argue that this happened some different time back then. That's the European version. The guy Gutenberg, who was the first to print a Bible, this was actually the first revolution. This was the first jump into a different level. So coming from information technology 0.0 to probably 1.0. Why do I tell you this? Take a moment to think about how long it took from somewhere in the 15th century to where we are now until book printing and the capabilities for knowledge management, for handing over knowledge from one generation to the other, how long this took. These were the couple hundred years before we fully captured the benefits of that technology. And it was a huge step forward for human mankind. What I'm trying to tell you is, we have seen the next wave, and a few of us, including me, have participated in some of the next wave developments. And IBM was instrumental, by the way, in many of those inventions which happened there. The next wave of information technology, you could argue when it exactly started, was it the punch card back in 19-something, 1902, 1903? Or was it the first electronic calculator, 1944? Or was it probably RAMAC System 360, somewhere in the early 60s? This is when we took books to the next level. This is when we started to automate it, to virtualize it to some extent. Information could be sent much quicker than sending a book around. You could send it via wire. You made it very easily to be transformed. And there were several smaller waves in that, as we all know. The big centralized computing, back office computing, then the decentralized version with PCs coming to everybody. And then, as the next wave, the World Wide Web in the mid-90s. So what's next? I mean, this was in itself breathtaking enough, I think. Well, what is next? You have heard a lot about over the last 2 days already. What's next is the confluence, the coming together of major trends. And we all have talked about them, and I'm sure by now you could easily breach them, like the IBMers do up here. It is about social media. It is about big data. It is about mobility. And it is, last but not least, about cloud. Those major technology trends, from all I can tell, from all our researchers tell me, will create the next wave. Imagine this. Going back to book printing, it took hundreds of years to penetrate the world. And human mankind had hundreds of years to adapt to it. I think the challenge we all are up for, we the experts of this thing, is to help the rest of the human mankind to digest what is coming. Now, we have better words for this. We call it transformation, right? And all of you are in the transformation business. This is what you offer to your customers. Sounds so neutral. It is nothing less than apply a revolution to an existing organization and to human beings. It is no longer an evolution. That's what I want to leave you with. What we are going to see is a revolution. And usually revolutions are painful. Now the point here is, you cannot allow that your customers break during the revolution. These companies need to run. They want to make money. Otherwise, they have a fate like Nokia or others. They want to keep going. But this is a phenomenal task we are jointly up for. And that's what I want to leave you with. Now, let's look a little bit deeper. What are those trends? What are those 4 mega trends doing to us and to our customers? Number one, it's growing in scale. Deepak was referring to it a couple times. Scalability is one of the big issues. We provide a technology which enables to use it because of the low cost, the high efficiency, in a much wider scale than we ever thought before. At the same time, from a customer perspective again, it lowers significantly the barriers for entry into a market. Even small companies, within a few years, can change the whole industry. You need examples for that? Think about Amazon. Amazon starting as a small startup, trying to do a little book trading, book retailing. They changed the world. They changed the whole industry, not only in book retailing, by now in all of retailing. And companies who were not ready to step into this, they died. Give you another example from my home country, where we used to have very strong players in the retailing to send from a central station. So not shop retailing, but catalog retailing. Companies like Otto, Neckermann, Quelle, these guys were big players. Large revenues. 2 of the 3 died within 3 years because they were not ready to accept the challenge Amazon brought to the table. Only 1 guy survived. This is not 10 years, 20 years. It takes only a few years. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, this whole thing, these technologies, from an operating point of view, they increase complexity. Well, this is why, luckily enough, they all need us, right? They need IT people to help them to manage the complexity and to invent software and tools to make life easier, like Deepak was referring to today. At the same time, and that sounds strange, at the same time, these things become more consumable. So the customer, he wants to have the Apple feeling. He doesn't want to care about the complexity. So the employee in your customers, or the customers of your customers, they don't want to be bothered with the complexity of IT and risk mitigation and all the stuff you guys have to do for your customers in order to provide a safe environment. I think I already talked a little bit about speed and risk. The tough thing here is we are not talking about hundreds of years. We are not talking about decades or tens of years like in the first IT wave. From all I can tell, those technologies, those trends, we talk at best in years, if not in quarters, from an impact point of view. And that is tough. It is tough for organizations and it's tough for human beings. So this little tiny word, which we all hide behind, calling transformation, is an unbelievable huge task. It is a technical task to some extent when you migrate to another IT infrastructure, but that is the practical part. The more demanding, the more challenging part is to change behaviors, to change cultures. That will be the big challenge of this wave of information technology change. And if you take a look from the single individual, and I'm 100% sure you will agree with me, we suffer contextual overload. We suffer a phenomena which was always there, but not as pronounced as today. We have a tough time to select which information is relevant to us. And I gave you the example of brain science. 1 billion informations every second. Our brain is smart to select only 90 bytes actively. The rest is managed in the bag. Quite honestly, what is around us at the moment, this unbelievable wave of information, I'm not sure whether this technology which we developed over tens of thousands of years is still sufficient to cope with that. Whether we need other tools to manage this information overflow. And one way to help human beings, to help organizations to deal with this overload is predictive analysis. We very often, when we talk about business analytics and big data, we leave it at that. We say business analytics. I want to be a bit more specific. Most of what we have used so far, most of what the industry and our customers are using so far is what I would call descriptive business analytics. It is looking back and describing a situation and telling you, okay, those are your options to deal with. And there is a large field, untapped field, where customers are not even doing this. But that is, again, probably a result of the second wave of information technology changes. What we are seeing right now being used, and the example of the grocery store and the pregnant woman is probably the best example for that. What we are up for and what we have developed the capabilities for now is predictive business analytics. So using all the data, taking the likelihood and the probability of different developments, and then coming up with a recommendation and say, this is what is most likely with 99% confidence is going to happen. I'm sure you can envision that this again will change everybody's life. Is this relevant for governments? It is. If you look to what the current elections in the US, president elections in the US last year, current elections in Germany this year, this predictive data analysis plays a huge role how parties, how candidates are positioning their own messaging. They listen very carefully via social media, Twitter, Facebook, all kinds of sources. What's going on? What are the relevant themes the population wants to hear? What are the relevant opinions and attitudes they feel strong about? And then they start to adjust their messaging. This is not fiction, it's real. It happens real time. And probably not the best politician wins, well, most probably never the best politician wins. But now you can say most probably the guy who understands predictive business analytics best and social media best has the biggest chances to win. Those are the type of changes I'm personally foreseeing. Now, if you take all of that, we're trying to embrace this. We are trying to come up with a new thinking. And what we are seeing coming based on those trends is actually the customer as an individual. In the past, we were looking at clients as a mass. How will they behave? What will they most likely buy from us? This is history. This is old technology. What we expect to see is we are reaching for a demographic of one. So companies will start to look at every single customer. Can you imagine this from Walmart? 2 billion customers? Targeting them very specifically and talking about their specific requirements, their specific behavior. This is exactly where we are heading to. Now that has a couple of flavors. First of all, and that's probably the most relevant one, is there's one big hurdle that this is going to happen. And this big hurdle I would call with one word: trust. The biggest challenge, again, coming from Europe, with a heritage of a large data privacy concern, This will be the biggest challenge for companies to apply the technology. Unless we, the IT companies, and our customers are not able to prove that the single individual still has ownership of his own data. He decides whether the company like Walmart or Procter & Gamble or others are authorized to use my behavior data. Only if we are able to secure this also through the right governmental regulations, I think we will not see much of those potentials being really realized. In the European community, I can tell you there is a strong effort underway at the moment, specifically after the situation with NSA, which I'm pretty sure you have heard about here as well, the espionage coming from the US. After this happened, there is a strong push across all countries to strengthen data privacy and data security, both from an individual point of view, but also from a company point of view. Because many companies are very concerned that their trade secrets, that their IP, that their customer base will be open to anybody else. And so they will face unfair competition from their perspective. So this will be a big topic. Trust is probably the biggest prerequisite to make this happen. And it will affect all of you as well, from your businesses as well. You see an increasing trend of nearshoring or in-country shoring or even in-region shoring. So more and more companies want to have access to their data right next to their offices. They still consider outsourcing to be an option, but they want to be clear where it is. And the same applies to the individuals. So if we want to make that vision of a demographic of one real, customers as an individual real, I think we need to think about completely different customer expectations. I know many people who will say, I don't have a problem if somebody knows where I am. I have no problem if somebody knows what I'm buying. But to be honest, I think most of those people have no clue how transparent they are. We talk about a 360-degree data visibility. And I'm sure you can relate to it. You are all technical people. Credit cards, smartphones, navigation systems, any kind of payback cards. You leave more traces, we leave more traces in social media, in Google, wherever you want, than you could imagine. If somebody wants to target you, they know more about you than you know. I'm absolutely sure. And again, this has a couple side effects. After NSA, many people start thinking about Google. You all know when you start to type in a word, Google already offers you a ton of options. And by the way, the next moment you hit on a thing, you will get responses with a ton of advertisements. Some people like it. They think, oh, that's cool. I don't need to search for it. Other people hate it. So they go to something else. They start to go to DuckDuckGo or IC-Quick, which promise you they will never take a cookie, they will never take a record of what you do, and they will not put any advertisements out. Again, this is something we, from an IT perspective, need to deal with. So, world is changing. This vision of a demographic of one is there. The question is, will it happen? And the requirements are listed here. What we as customers expect are instant access. So we don't want to wait and understand for 4 hours before we actually do something. Instant access. Transparency. We want to understand what happens. I talked about trusted relationships. We want to make sure the company is using the data only in the way we authorize them to use it, and not selling it off to somebody else or making their own business with it. And last but not least, if you get used to this demographic of one, you want to have a seamless experience. So this relates to highest availability. So if you want to translate it now into IT infrastructure, we talk about instant access, which is performance. We talk about seamless experience, which is highest availability. We talk about trusted relationships, which is security. And that is exactly, I think, what we are concerned about and what we are working on. So I'm pretty sure, and now I'll bridge back to Deepak and bridge forward to what you are going to see in your elective sessions. You can take out of my vision whatever you want, and you can have your own judgment what will happen and what will not happen. The only thing I'm really serious about, and I think I would like to argue with everybody in the room who has a different opinion. What is coming the next 5 years is a factor of 10 more in all dimensions than what we have seen the last 10 years. And going forward, the infrastructure where all those technologies and solutions are running is absolutely critical. And for a demographic of one, your customers, our customers' infrastructure needs to change. And as you have heard a couple times today and yesterday afternoon, we have prepared for this. We have prepared for it in a big way. We invest dramatically into this research and development. You know this around the world. $6 billion investment every year. And I think you can look to the other hardware and software suppliers to find out how much they do. We hold more than 65,000 patents, and if you just look back for the last 2-3 years, only in STG, only on the hardware side, we have invested a tremendous amount of money to provide differentiating products which help you to run for your customers' infrastructure, which is reliable, which is high performance, and which enables security. Whether it's flash, a real performance booster, whether it's pure systems, a vertical integrated technology which makes life much easier for your clients or for you, or whether it's our Power and C-Series technology which provides high-end mainframe class availability. And we will continue to do this going forward. The same on acquisitions. I skipped this slide because Deepak was referring to it quite intensively. So I want to close and want to ask you, as in our CEO study, almost 3/4 of all CEOs said technology to them, to their business, is the most important external force they worry about. If you take that as a fact, and you think about the client engagements you are having right now, if you ask your clients the questions which I listed here, how many of them can answer with a clear yes on all 6 questions? From the customers I see, and I see more than 100 every year, I can tell you many of those guys are not ready for the future, not for what is coming under this scenario I just gave you. Also from me, you will hear the plea, we are here to partner with you. We are here to help you. And if you need any proof, I think, again, Deepak has given you a lot of examples, a lot of practical solutions, how IBM can help you to differentiate yourself in front of your customer. And if you want to take a look at the capabilities and the penetration and deployment in the different areas, I think you have a good list of data here. So bottom line, infrastructure And I'm totally convinced about that. Infrastructure is the base for innovation. And that's something we collectively know how to do well. Hardware and software. Now, in all truth, and I hope you agree with me, the real challenge for our customers and the real area where we can add value is helping them to cope with the cultural change, how to get there. It sounds easy, virtualize your storage. I can tell you customers take 2-3 years to embrace that concept. This cultural change is something we can help them with. And then achieving the transformation results, that's the business imperative. This is why the companies are doing it. The opportunity is here. The opportunity is here for you guys and for us, and we are looking forward to harvest this opportunity together with you. Thanks a lot. Anil, I'm not sure. Sorry? You're on next?
No, we're finished after.
Finished, break, coffee. So you survived it.